No, seriously though, I mean it. Does Colby Covington have bald, naked, gelatinous pictures of Dana White or something? How in the fresh hell is this man still firmly entrenched in the welterweight rankings in 2025? We have not seen this dude in almost a full year. We didn't see him for about a year before that, and a good year and a half before that. In fact, this big ol' star-spangled hemorrhoid hasn't won a fight since beating Jorge Masvidal back in March of 2022. We are tiptoeing dangerously close to the 4-year mark there. In fact, he only has 2 wins in 6 years. And as a matter of fact, he does not possess a single win over a ranked welterweight in the UFC. And as yet another matter of fact, he only has 2 wins over people still currently on the roster. And Rafael dos Anjos, who I'm just assuming hasn't retired because I haven't heard him say that, and Max Griffin, who's still kicking around there in the lower regions of 170 and 185. Despite those 2, every other win is a has-been. And yet, he happens to be smack dab in the middle of easily the best division we have right now, stuffed to the gills with talent, so his presence is getting more and more bothersome without actually, you know, winning any fights. Ah, shut up. Now, I will admit, annoying shtick aside, I never really minded Colby's presence all that much. I found a story of reconciling with his kinda boring style and not resonating with fans, pushing him to try and be the next Chael Sonnen. Well, try is the operative word.
Literally, you're so fucking stupid. On Saturday night, I'm gonna bring you to a place you never want to be. I'm gonna bring you the 7th layer hair. Hell.
Okay.
But you know what? Even if all his lines were scripted, even if he flubbed them half the time, even if he had the comedic timing of a slab of drywall, I think it was all worth it in boosting up his name value to a degree. He took it too far sometimes, but for the most part, yeah. He was always incredibly talented, with some truly relentless chain wrestling and Marab level cardio that allowed him to just drive people into each and every corner of the octagon until he broke them completely. But the issue was, no one gave a solitary shit about watching him fight. It's sad to say, because I personally think the wrestling exchanges and reversals, takedowns, trips, and all that are really enjoyable to watch when they're done at the elite level, but people en masse just don't really enjoy that kind of thing as much. They want to see people slug, and thus he was never exactly what you'd call a fan favorite early on. I don't know how truthful the story was about him being approached by the top brass and basically being told, hey, you kind of suck, you're kind of boring, so we're going to cut you.
Because we don't like you, you're not a character, none of the fans care about your fighting style, no one cares about your personality, so I knew I had to make a change. I had to do something that was going to get the fans involved, make it a circus, you know, because this is the circus business, you know.
I don't know about all that exactly, because there have been plenty of grappling heavy, humble merchants that are still in there to this day. I mean, be serious. Is Grant Dawson really knocking anyone's socks off? But still, I think it's true that he recognized that he had to up the ante in some way if he wanted to garner a following of more than just college wrestling boomers. So he started dipping his toes in the braggadocious end of the pool, or the loudmouth end of the aisle, if you will. The jackass corner, I don't know. Most people tend to think he really exploded into his heel persona leading up to and following his fight with Damian Maia. That's where people started to notice, sure, but he was planting the seeds for that in a few fights beforehand. And then after getting his first ranked win over Dong Hyun Kim, this is where he fully accepted his heel position.
I'm the on-ground king of this division. This is my division now. Dana, I'm a size 32 waist. Get that belt ready for me.
But yes, it was after taking on Damian Maia in Brazil that he really lit up his branding with this classic rant against the many thousands of people in attendance.
I should have knocked him out. Brazil, you're a dog. All you filthy animals suck. I got one thing to say. Tyrone Woodley, I'm coming for you. If you don't answer the front door, I'm going to knock it in and I'm going to take what's mine. That welterweight belt.
And boom, just like that, this gnat was buzzing around everyone's ear canals. He simply, truly would not shut the fuck up, ever. But it was working. And to his credit, he wasn't just talking, he was more than walking. I know I just panned his lack of current talent wins, but beating RDA and Robbie Lawler in the late 2010s was nothing to sneer at. That's pretty good. That's 2 definitive wins over former champions. Not too shabby. And at this point, he was pretty much a shoo-in for the title. And so then, finally, we got him in there facing off against the unstoppable Kamaru Usman in one of the most memorable title fights of the last 10 years, probably. They were both big personalities, and the build-up was pretty fun, but no one really liked either guy that much, to be honest. And neither guy was known for being particularly entertaining to watch. People thought this one was gonna kind of stink a little bit. But this was a classic case of 2 wrestlers deciding, fuck it, let's swing. And so we got a back-and-forth striking war for almost the full 25 minutes. Before Usman would finish Colby at the end of the 5th. This fight shot up the fan appeal immensely for both guys. And Usman went on to take that momentum and build up a pretty loyal fan base. He had a pretty tepid, boring decision over Masvidal the first time, then he went on to have a pretty damn exciting welterweight title reign for a few years, just knocking people out left and right. He stayed active and gained support. But as for Colby, what did he do with this high-profile exposure and newfound fan appreciation? Well, this big doofus went on to only fight once a year and refuse almost every opportunity put in front of him at every turn. He fights a withering Tyron Woodley who is a piss hair away from boxing Jake Paul a year later. He then sits around waiting for another title shot the following year, gets in there again with Usman, loses again, and then sits around for basically a year and a half until the Masvidal grudge match came along, which I'm sure he only wanted so he could get another title shot, deserved or no, which after another year and a half off would be proven correct as he'd be granted the bullshittiest title shot of all time against Leon Edwards in late 2024. But this time the long layoffs and the wear and tear on the body would come back to bite him in the ass a bit, as he looked like wet, sloppy shit in this fight. He'd then lose this one as well, and then came back a year later on short notice against Joaquin Buckley, which to his credit, he didn't have to do that. That was the first ballsy move in a while, but he got his ass whooped. This inactivity being rewarded with seemingly infinite title shots was annoying enough, especially in a division so consistently stacked as 170. But even now in 2025, when he hasn't said a word about competing since the Buckley battering, his presence is no longer a fun or exciting addition to this scene. He wasted the rest of his prime waiting for champ fights or money fights, and when they didn't come, he just did nothing. For a while, he was trying to get a Dustin Poirier fight, then it was a Wonder Boy fight, then there was this Ian Gary grudge match brewing. And the latter was especially egregious because he called out Gary, and doing so at the peak of Gary hate was a genius move, honestly. And he came out with this video calling him out and telling him to get on his knees and beg for the opportunity, and he had a pretty good response to his credit. So this, things were heating up, this was cooking. But then Colby got cold feet and backed away from it. Why? Why would you engage in this and then tiptoe out the room? What did you think people were gonna think of you? I get wanting to make the most of your high profile and go for bigger paydays, but for God's sake, man, you could have made so much more just actually fighting occasionally. Around the time of that Masvidal fight, Colby was still in top form. He could have still been a problem for these other contenders. But him having these long-ass layoffs just waiting for the perfect opportunity to fall in his lap made his skill set take a nosedive into the rocks. His last two performances were mighty stinky. And I don't love his chances at this point against anyone in the rankings, really. And I wonder if he knows that. I wonder if he's thinking he can sit around and wait for a more beatable big name to come up so he can throw his hat in the ring. I don't know. But the thing is, he doesn't have to fight if he doesn't want to. Like, whatever. It's no big deal. It's on the UFC to take him out the rankings, though, so people who actually fight and deserve it can get in there. He's just a big old doorstop at the moment. Feels like they're just keeping him around in case something comes along. I don't know if Masvidal returns, and so thus they're just kind of keeping him around. And he doesn't need to be there. And it sucks that I feel this way because, again, I enjoyed his presence as a heel a few years back, cringy or no. I enjoyed watching him fight, but this is just getting silly.